My fingers gripped the rusted key to the Desert Rose Motel, its jagged edges biting into my palm as I stared at the crumbling facade, its neon sign sputtering like a faint pulse in the Oklahoma twilight. "You're insane, Clara." My brother's voice echoed in my head, sharp and mocking. Had I just gambled my entire $92,000 savings on a forgotten ruin? Or was this my chance to finally break free? I'm Clara Bennett, 29, and standing here in Harrington, Oklahoma. I felt the weight of that choice like a stone in my chest. Heavy but alive. Harrington's a small town, barely a blip on Route 66, where the past lingers like dust on a dashboard. Back in the 50s, this place buzzed with life. Travelers in shiny Fords and Pontiacs rolled through, their radios blaring Elvis, stopping at the Desert Rose for a cold soda or a clean bed. The motel's pink walls and glowing arrow welcomed dreamers and drifters alike. But when the interstate carved a new path, it left Harrington behind. The Desert Rose withered, its windows smashed, its courtyard choked with weeds, its story buried under decades of silence. I grew up on tales of Route 66, scribbling sketches of its diners and motels in my school notebooks. Those drawings were my escape, a world where I wasn't just Clara, the quiet one, stuck in a life that didn't fit. For years, I played the part I was supposed to finance degree, a desk job in Tulsa analyzing stocks, a paycheck that bought stability but not joy. Each day, I'd watch the clock, its ticks like a countdown to nowhere, my sketches hidden in a drawer. "You've got a good thing going," my dad would say, his voice firm, proud. But good wasn't enough. It felt like wearing someone else's skin. When I got laid off 6 months ago, I didn't cry. I exhaled. My $92,000 savings, scraped from years of frugal living, became a ticket out. I could have hunted for another cubicle, another safe bet. Instead, I drove down Route 66, and there it was, the Desert Rose. Broken, but stubborn. Like it was waiting for me. Its faded mural of a blooming rose, barely visible under grime, stirred something deep. This wasn't just a building. It was a chance to build a life that felt like mine. Have you ever faced a moment where you could play it safe or leap into the unknown? Share it below. I'm curious. For me, that leap led to the Desert Rose, a risk that would test my courage and unearth secrets I never expected. The Desert Rose Motel's key sat heavy in my pocket, a reminder of the gamble I'd taken. But as I pulled into my parents' driveway in Harrington, my courage wavered. Sunday dinner at the Bennetts was a ritual, one I'd come to dread. The smell of Mom's rosemary lamb wafted through the screen door, and I braced myself for the inquisition I knew was coming. My family had a knack for turning my choices into a courtroom drama, and buying that motel was about to put me on trial. Inside, the dining room glowed under Mom's chandelier, the table set with her best china. Dad, Thomas, sat at the head, his lawyer's stare fixed on the roast like it owed him a verdict. Mom, Margaret, fussed with the salad, her soft hum masking a worry I could feel. My brother, Evan, leaned back in his chair, tie loosened, already launching into a story about his latest deal in Tulsa. "Sealed a $2 million fund," he said, smirking. "They're naming a conference room after me." Lydia, his girlfriend, a vet with a quick laugh, nodded along, but her eyes flicked to me, sensing the storm brewing. I pushed a carrot across my plate, invisible as always, the odd one, out in a family obsessed with winning. I wasn't a mess not on paper. I'd earned my finance degree, landed a job crunching numbers, but that job was a vice, squeezing the life out of me. At night, I'd sketch old Route 66 motels, lose myself in books about its artists, feeling a pull I couldn't explain. "You're wasting your talents," Dad would say, his voice like gravel. "Art's a hobby, not a life." Evan was worse, tossing me job listings like I was a kid who'd lost her way. "Grow up, Clara." He'd jab, "You're not 20 anymore." Mom's gentle nudges hurt most. "We just want you happy. Safe, safe." That word was a cage, and I was clawing to get out. Getting laid off felt like fate, not failure. I'd saved $92,000, enough to start over. But at dinner, as Evan bragged and Dad carved the lamb, I shrank smaller. My news about the Desert Rose stuck in my throat. Finally, Mom asked, "Clara, how's the job hunt?" I swallowed hard. "I'm not looking." I bought a motel, the Desert Rose, on Route 66. The room froze. Dad's knife paused mid-cut. Evan snorted. "That dump." Mom's eyes widened. Soft but sharp. "Honey, that's a lot to take on." Dad's voice was low, dangerous. "You threw away your savings for a ruin. You're smarter than this." Evan leaned in, all teeth. "What's next?" "Painting murals for pennies." I gripped my fork, heat rising. "It's not a ruin. It's a chance, my chance." I stood, chair scraping, and walked out, their voices fading behind me. "She'll crash and burn." Evan muttered. Mom called, "Clara, wait." In my car. I let the tears fall, hot and messy. I was done living their script, done being the shadow to Evan's spotlight. The Desert Rose was my rebellion, a jagged edge of hope. I'd make it work, not to prove them wrong, but to prove I was enough. Have you ever had to walk away to find yourself? Tell me in the comments. I need to know I'm not alone. The Desert Rose Motel lingered in my mind like a half-remembered song, its faded pink walls calling me back every time I tried to look away. 2 weeks after that brutal family dinner, I hit a wall. I'd just left a job interview in Tulsa, the kind where the manager scrolled his phone while I pitched myself, his offer a bland promise of stability in a cubicle that'd choke me slow. I forced a smile, shook his hand, but in my car, the thought of saying yes felt like swallowing glass. I'd rather bust tables than sign up for another life that wasn't mine. I took the scenic route home, cruising down Route 66 through Harrington, the road quiet except for the hum of my tires. That's when I saw it again, the Desert Rose, its broken neon sign dangling like a dare, sagebrush clawing at its base. I'd driven by it countless times, but today, it stopped me cold. I pulled into the lot, gravel crunching, and got out. The motel was a mess-cracked stucco, boarded windows, a faded rose mural barely clinging to the wall. Yet there was something alive in its bones, curved 50s architecture, a rusted bell by the office door, tiles glinting through decades of dirt. It wasn't just a building, it was a story, begging to be told. I dialed the number on the for sale sign, my pulse hammering. Nora Caldwell, a real estate agent with a smoker's rasp, picked up the Desert Rose. "That place is a lost cause. Clara," I pushed for a tour. She met me that afternoon, unlocking the gate with a sigh. "Needs a new everything roof. Pipes, wiring. Plus, old land disputes could bite you." The bank wanted $95,000, but she muttered they'd take less. I walked the property, Nora's warnings fading as I saw it, a retro diner in the lobby, art galleries in the rooms, a courtyard alive with music. This could be my mark, my way out of a life I'd outgrown. That night, I sat with my laptop, my $92,000 savings staring back. Safe meant another job, another desk, another decade of regrets. Risk meant the Desert Rose, a leap that could break me or set me free. I offered $80,000, every penny I had. The bank countered at $85,000. I paced my apartment, heart racing, then said yes. The closing was a week away, my savings about to vanish. I broke the news at Sunday dinner, Mom's lamb steaming on the table. "I'm buying the Desert Rose Motel," I said, voice steady. "I'll restore it. Make it a Route 66 stop with a diner. Art, all of it." Dad's fork hit his plate. "You're tossing your future on a wreck." Evan laughed, sharp as a blade. "What? You're a hippie now." Mom reached for my hand. "Clara, it's so risky." I pulled back. "It's mine. I don't need your blessing." I left, their voices trailing Evan's. "She's lost it." Mom's soft, "Be careful." Tears stung as I drove, but the Desert Rose burned brighter in my mind. I'd make it shine, not for them, but for the Clara I'd buried too long. Ever made a choice that scared you spitless but felt right? Share it below. I'm all ears. The Desert Rose Motel was mine, the deed signed, the key in my hand, but victory tasted like dust. Standing in the lobby, I faced a truth harsher than Harrington's summer heat. Sunlight pierced jagged holes in the roof, casting shadows on cracked tiles and peeling paint. The air stank of rot and motor oil, a reminder of the $92,000 I'd sunk into this place. My family's voices, Dad's wreck. Evan's lost it looped in my head. Had I been a fool to think I could revive this ruin? I started the next day with a visit from Carl, the county inspector. His clipboard a weapon as he prowled the motel. Wiring's a death trap. He grunted, "Pipes are corroded, asbestos in the walls, lead paint everywhere. Roof won't last a month." His list of violations was a novel, each line a gut punch. Land needs environmental tests, 2 old septic tanks. No permits till that's clear. I nodded, my mouth dry, his words piling like stones. I'd planned to restore, not rebuild from scratch. I threw myself into work, hauling out trash-broken chairs, moldy mattresses, shards of glass until my hands bled through my gloves. Each cleared patch felt like defiance, especially when I uncovered the lobby's mosaic tiles, their rose pattern gleaming under grime. But the costs piled faster than the garbage. The environmental test drained $6,000. A basic pipe fix cost $2,500, and when we tested it, a geyser erupted, soaking the lobby. I mopped until dawn, my back screaming, only to find another leak hours later. My savings shriveled, forcing me to ditch my apartment. I moved into my car, parked behind the motel, the back seat my bed under a thin blanket. "This is temporary," I whispered. But the dark didn't answer. Then came the worst blow. One morning, I found the office windows smashed, failure scrawled in red paint across the wall. Beer cans and cigarette butts littered the lot, my salvaged tiles shattered. Local kids, reckless and cruel, had torn through my work. I sank to my knees, glass crunching, and let the sobs come, raw and jagged. My phone buzzed Evan, his voice all fake concern. "Heard your dumps trashed. Time to cut your losses." I hung up, his words a knife. The motel felt like a trap, my dream a delusion. To survive, I took a job at Harrington's art store, stocking shelves for pennies while pouring every free hour into the Desert Rose. I patched walls, scrubbed floors. But progress was a trickle against a flood of setbacks. The wiring needed a $4,000 overhaul. Mice had chewed it to ribbons. Each day brought a new bill, a new crack in my resolve. One night, curled in my car, the neon sign's faint flicker my only light. I murmured, "Did I get this wrong?" The silence was deafening. But deep down, a stubborn spark refused to die. I'd fight for this place, for me, until I had nothing left. Ever hit a wall so hard you questioned everything? Drop your story in the comments. I could use the company. The Desert Rose Motel was bleeding me dry, each repair a fresh wound in my dwindling savings. I'd given everything $92,000 my home, my pride, and still, the place looked more like a graveyard than a dream. Desperate, I set a deadline one week to find a reason to keep going, or I'd swallow my stubbornness and walk away. My last hope lay in a locked storage room behind the motel's old check-in desk, its door swollen shut, as if it held secrets too heavy to share. I'd ignored it, dreading another mess. But now, with nothing left to lose, I grabbed a crowbar and went to war. The door fought back, wood splintering as I pried, my arms burning with effort. With a final shove, it burst open, hinges screaming into the empty lobby. A stale whiff of canvas, ink, and time hit me, not the rot I'd expected. The room was dark, the motel's wiring long dead here. I fetched my flashlight, its beam slicing through a haze of dust, and stepped inside. What I saw stole my breath. This wasn't a junk pile, it was a vault. Shelves sagged with wooden crates, leather journals, and rolled canvases sealed in glass tubes. A table held relics, Route 66 pins, faded motel brochures, a brass key engraved Desert Rose. It felt like stepping into 1955, untouched by the decades. I eased open a crate, my hands trembling, and found paintings, bold oils of open roads, neon-lit diners, desert blooms under starry skies. Each bore a looping signature, Amelia Grayson. My pulse quickened. I'd read about her, a Route 66 artist whose work fetched fortunes at auctions. I grabbed a journal, its pages brittle, and read the tight script of Jacob Ramsey, the motel's first owner. Amelia stayed here in '57, he wrote, left her paintings when the interstate came, said they belonged to the Desert Rose. They're her heart. And this place is too. My eyes stung. These weren't just art, they were a legacy, hidden to save them from ruin, deeper in. I found a framed certificate, its edges curled but gold seal intact. It named the Desert Rose a Route 66 historic landmark, a haven for the road's dreamers. I sank onto a dusty crate, the flashlight shaking in my grip. This changed everything. The motel wasn't a lost cause, it was a treasure, its value locked in this room. Amelia's paintings could fund repairs. The certificate could unlock grants. And Jacob's words gave it a soul. I wasn't fighting for a building. I was fighting for a story that deserved to live. I called Henry Sullivan, a Route 66 collector I'd met at Harrington's Historical Society. "Clara," he said, voice rising. "Grayson Originals. One could sell for $15,000 easy. That landmark status, it's a preservation goldmine." He promised to link me with the Route 66 Historical Society. I hung up, staring at the paintings, their colors alive in the dim light. For the first time, I felt it, hope, fierce and fragile, like a match flaring in the dark. Have you ever found something that turned your world upside down? Gave you a reason to keep fighting? Share it in the comments, I'm dying to hear. This room was my lifeline. Proof the Desert Rose and I could rise together. The hidden room in the Desert Rose Motel was a spark in the dark. Its treasures, Amelia Grayson's paintings, Jacob Ramsey's journals, that Route 66 landmark certificate, lighting a fire I thought had gone out. I wasn't out of the woods, but for the first time, I saw a way through. Those relics weren't just old art and paper. They were keys to saving the motel. And maybe me too. I rolled up my sleeves, ready to turn this discovery into something real. I called Henry Sullivan, the Route 66 collector, and he showed up the next morning, his eyes gleaming as he studied Amelia's paintings. "These are the real deal." "Clara," he said, holding a canvas of a sunset highway. "I'll pay $25,000 for two, but keep the rest. They'll make your motel a destination. It hurt to let them go, like losing a piece of the Desert Rose's heart. But that money meant a new roof, clean pipes, a fighting chance. I shook his hand, the deal done, and felt a weight lift as the funds hit my account. Henry didn't stop there. He connected me with Eleanor Hayes, head of the Route 66 Historical Society. I met her in the motel's lobby, journals and certificate laid out like evidence. Eleanor, all sharp eyes and silver hair, read Jacob's words, her fingers tracing the faded ink. "This place was a beacon for artists," she said, voice soft but firm. "With this landmark status, you're eligible for matching grants, dollar for dollar on historic repairs." Her team fast-tracked my application, doubling my budget overnight. It wasn't a fortune, but it was enough to dream bigger. Harrington's artist crowd caught wind of the find, and I saw a chance to make the Desert Rose more than a motel. I met with a painter named Mia and her crew at a local coffee shop, pitching a vision guest rooms as galleries, the courtyard a stage for workshops. "Let's make this a hub for Route 66's spirit," I said. Mia grinned, her earrings catching the light. "Count us in." They signed on to exhibit and teach, breathing life into my plan. A brewer named Jake even offered a custom ale, Desert Rose Glow, for the future diner. Their belief made my chest tighten, not just in me, but in this place. The buzz grew louder. Samuel Torres from the Harrington Herald wrote a piece, "Lost Art Found on Route 66," that went viral when a travel magazine shared it. I started a Desert Rose revival on Instagram, posting shots of the paintings, the motel's glowing tiles, my own dusty boots. Thousands followed. Their comments, "This is incredible. When can I visit?" piling up like bricks in a new foundation. Each one felt like a nod from the universe, keep going. With the cash and grants, I fixed the roof, certified the land clean, and polished the lobby's rose mosaic to a shine. The Desert Rose was waking up. And so was I, standing in the courtyard, the air sharp with paint and promise. I whispered to the motel, "We're building something, aren't we?" The breeze seemed to nod back, urging me forward. The Desert Rose Motel was starting to breathe again, its walls pulsing with the promise of Amelia Grayson's paintings and Jacob Ramsey's stories. I was sorting canvases in the lobby, picturing the day they'd hang in a glowing gallery. When my phone buzzed, Nora Caldwell's voice crackled through, low and urgent. "Clara, trouble's coming. Sterling Corp, some hotshot developers from Tulsa, say they own the Desert Rose. They're talking lawsuits." My heart sank like a stone. "That's impossible." I stammered, "I've got the deed." Nora's sigh was heavy. "They're digging up a land claim from the 80s, tied to the motel's old boundaries. They want it for a mall, and they don't mess around." I hung up, the neon sign outside flickering like a warning. Everything I'd fought for my savings, my sleep, my soul could be snatched away. A letter from Sterling Corp arrived the next day, all sharp legalese, ordering me to stop renovations or face court. They saw the Desert Rose as dirt to pave over, its history worthless next to their profits. I sat on the lobby floor, Jacob's journal open, its pages no shield against panic. I couldn't afford a lawyer, let alone a war with a corporate machine. "What now?" I whispered to the empty room, my voice small, but the motel's silence, heavy with decades of survival, pushed me to my feet. I'd come too far to fold. Harrington had other plans. Samuel Torres's Herald article, "Corporate Goliath Targets, Route 66 Treasure," hit like a spark in dry grass. The town caught fire. Mia, the painter, rallied local artists for a fundraiser in the square, selling desert-themed sketches to bankroll my defense. This is our motel. Clara, she said, pressing a $4,000 check into my hand, her eyes fierce. Mr. Jenkins at the art store slipped me free brushes and paint. His gruff nod saying more than words. Jake, the brewer, hosted a Save the Rose night, his Desert Rose Glow Ale raising $3,000. I stood in the crowd, throat tight, as strangers toasted to my fight. I'd been alone so long, but now I wasn't. Mayor Tom Ellis called me in, his office cluttered with Route 66 maps. The Desert Rose is Harrington's heart, he said, leaning forward. We need it tourism, pride, all of it. The council's behind you. Permits and legal help included. His words lit a fuse. I tore through Jacob's journals, hunting for anything to fight Sterling. In a brittle envelope, I found it a 1979 land deed, stamped and clear, proving the motel's plot was Ramsey's. No disputes attached. A volunteer lawyer, sparked by Samuel's article, took my case for free. In court, we presented the deed. Jacob's words, our sword. The judge, a woman with a Route 66 pin on her robe, ruled fast. Sterling's claim is baseless, she declared. The room erupted, my knees buckling with relief. Harrington didn't stop there. They launched a Desert Rose Day. Volunteers flooding the motel, kids planting roses, retirees sanding walls, Mia's crew painting murals. A guitarist strummed old road tunes, the air alive with laughter and sweat. I joined in, paint on my cheeks, and felt it a family, not of blood, but of belief. The Desert Rose had woven us tight, a town standing tall. Ever had a community carry you when you couldn't stand? Share it below, I'm listening. The Desert Rose Motel's grand opening broke over Harrington like a desert sunrise, warm and unstoppable. I pulled into the lot at dawn, nerves jangling, and stopped short. A parade of vintage cars, sleek 55 T-Birds, a glossy Corvette, a turquoise Bel Air lined Route 66, their owners polishing chrome with easy grins. A guy in a faded denim jacket called out, "Clara, your motel's a legend already. We're here to kick this off, right?" My throat tightened. Half laugh, half tear. This was real, and it was mine. By 10 a.m., the crowd swelled locals in cowboy hats. Route 66, diehards from Arizona to Illinois. Reporters jotting notes. The motel sparkled, its pink stucco smooth. The rose mosaic tiles gleaming like jewels. The neon sign, rewired and proud, waited for its moment. The lobby, now a diner, hummed with the sizzle of Rose's burgers. Her coffee pot never still. The old rooms, reborn as galleries, held Amelia Grayson's paintings beside local art, each frame a pulse of the road spirit. I moved through the chaos, checking details, my heart racing with a joy I hadn't earned yet. Mayor Tom Ellis climbed onto a crate in the courtyard, his voice cutting through the buzz. Clara Bennett didn't just save a motel, she brought Harrington back to life. Cheers rose, loud and raw, as he handed me a plaque, Harrington's beacon, etched in brass. Eleanor Hayes from the Route 66 Historical Society stepped up, her gaze steady. The Desert Rose is Route 66's beating heart, a landmark reborn. She pinned a medallion to my jacket, official and heavy, and the crowd roared again. I gripped the plaque, my hands shaky, their faith almost too big to hold. The day unfolded in a blur of color and sound. A jazz band wove 50s riffs, their saxophone curling through the air as visitors snapped photos of the cars, the sign, the art. Rosa's diner ran out of her cherry pie by noon, tables packed with laughter and stories. In the galleries, people lingered, some whispering Jacob Ramsey's journal quotes, others sketching Amelia's highways in notebooks. My phone pinged. Desert Rose Revival was trending. Posts flooding in. This place is magic. Booked my trip. A reporter from a travel show grabbed me, her camera rolling. Clara, what's it like to revive a legend? I grinned, breathless, like finding a home I didn't know I needed. As twilight fell, the crowd gathered tight. I stood by the neon sign, its arrow aimed at the stars. This motel's been here through it all, I said, voice catching. It's taught me the road's worth taking, curves and all. I flipped the switch, and the sign lit up, pink and gold flooding the lot, a glow that felt alive. Gasps turned to cheers, faces bright in the light. I looked out, my chest full, and knew this was my place, my proof, my joy. Ever poured your heart into something and seen it shine? Tell me in the comments. I'm all ears. The Desert Rose. Motel's neon hummed softly, its pink light spilling over the emptying lot as the grand opening's energy faded into dusk. I leaned against the diner counter, wiping grease from my hands, the day's triumph still pulsing through me. Then I saw them, my family, the Bennetts, stepping out of the twilight like ghosts of a life I'd left behind. Dad, Thomas, stood tall, his blazer crisp but his eyes searching. Mom, Margaret, clutched a scarf, her smile hesitant, warm. Evan trailed behind, tie loose, no smirk for once, with Lydia at his side, her gaze curious, kind. They hadn't called, hadn't come since our fight over the motel. Now they were here, on my ground. Clara, Mom said, voice catching. This place, it's alive. I set my rag down, my pulse uneven. I'd wanted their approval, once, but now it felt like a stranger's gift. Dad walked the lobby, touching the polished tiles. Read about you in that magazine, he said, low, almost shy. I misjudged this. Clara, it's something real. His words cracked a wall I'd built, soft and sharp at once. Mom pulled me close, her hug fierce. You've done what most never dare, she whispered, her eyes wet. I'm so proud. Evan hung back, hands in pockets, studying a Grayson painting. Didn't see this coming, he said, voice gruff but honest. You built a damn empire out of nothing. Lydia elbowed him, grinning. He's been glued to your Instagram, kept saying, my sister's killing it. Evan coughed, red-faced. If you need a hand with numbers, projections, I'm around. It wasn't a full apology, but it was his way, and I took it. Might hold you to that. I said, a half smile breaking through. I showed them around the diner's chrome stools, the gallery's glowing art, the courtyard ready for music and paint. Mom traced the rose tiles, marveling. Dad asked about grants, his lawyer's mind engaged. Evan jotted ideas, muttering about scalability. Their awe was new, a bridge over years of distance. But as they left, waving under the neon's glow, I sat alone in the gallery, Jacob Ramsey's journal open. This wasn't about them, not anymore. The Desert Rose had pulled me from a life half-lived, taught me to trust the voice I'd silenced. I'd faced vandals, lawsuits, nights in my car, and come out stronger. This motel, this fight, had shown me I was enough. I closed the journal. The neons hum a quiet song. The Desert Rose was my home, my truth, and I'd only just begun to grow. Ever found a place that showed you who you are? Share it below, I'm listening. The Desert Rose Motel's neon arrow cut through the Harrington night, its pink glow a quiet triumph against the dark. I stood in the empty courtyard, the grand opening's echoes fading, and felt a calm I hadn't known in years. This journey betting my $92,000 on a broken motel, battling doubts and developers. Uncovering Amelia Grayson's art didn't just rebuild a piece of Route 66, it rebuilt me. The Desert Rose wasn't just a place. It was a mirror, showing me the Clara I'd buried under years of playing safe. Here's what I've carried forward. Lessons I hope spark something in you. First, take the leap. The scariest choices often lead to the truest paths. Signing that deed, knowing I could lose everything, was like jumping off a cliff. But that fall taught me to fly. What's the risk you're dodging? Don't wait for permission. Second, find the hidden gems. The motel looked like rubble to most, but its paintings, its stories, held a fortune. Look at your life. What's the wreck others overlook that you see clearly? Third, trust your people. Harrington's artists, its brewers, its kids planting roses they carried me when I couldn't stand. Your community, big or small, is waiting to lift you. Find them. Last, embrace the breaks, leaks, vandals. That lawsuit each felt like the end. But every crack let light in, showed me how to keep going. Your failures, they're just steps to something stronger. The Desert Rose is growing, and so am I. I'm sketching plans, a chain of Route 66 havens, blending art and road magic, with Harrington as the route. One day, maybe you'll swing by, sip a Desert Rose glow, and tell me your story under this neon light. For now, I want to hear from you. What's the wildest chance you've taken? The one nobody got, but changed everything. Drop it in the comments. I'm reading every word. If you're ever on Route 66, pull into the Desert Rose. The diner's warm, the art's alive, and there's always a seat for someone chasing their own road. Hit that. Like if this hit home, and subscribe for more stories of betting big and finding your way. The real truth. The best treasures, motel or soul, are often tucked in the places others pass by. So, what's your hidden gem waiting to shine?